This episode of Pots and Trowels has been brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Mr Fothergills. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. This week we're going to be sprucing up the lawn to get it ready for summer, and I'm going to be in the vegetable garden sowing carrots and parsnips. Well, it's that time of the year again, isn't it, when the lawn mowers are out and we're mowing the grass, and I love that smell of freshly mown grass all the way through the spring and the summer. I'm a great believer of lawns in gardens. I think they set off the plants, you've got that colour all through the winter, the birds feed on it, makes oxygen of course, and lawns are a great way of absorbing water when we have heavy rain, which of course this year, you know, they've played their part in it. To keep a lawn in good condition, you don't have to do a great deal of work. Lots of people think you've just got to work on them constantly, but that's not true. As long as you mow them little and often, really you can get away with just that. So the secret is mow little and often, wait until the grass is fairly dry. That's the best thing. For the first few cuts of the season, I always use the grass box. It just gets rid of that tufty grass and any leaves in there. But thereafter, I take the box off, I fit the mulching plug into the back of the mower, and then what that does is it recycles the grass clippings, blows them down into the grass, so you're feeding the lawn and helping to keep it green all through the summer. If you haven't mown yet, then you need to get the mower out soon. And I always like to give the lawn a little bit of a rake at this time of the year. What it does, it makes sure that any grass that's flat, and this is where Sean's just been standing with his size 12s, it flattens the grass. And if you mow that, it doesn't mow it very well. So maybe just once a year at this time of the year, just give it a light rake, and that will pull out any rubbish in there. Now, if moss is a problem, you might need to put a bit of moss killer on, sulphate of iron first, to kill the moss. But that just lifts the grass, and it means that when you mow it, it makes a neater job, and it encourages also that raking, combing action, encourages thicker grass to grow, because that's at the end of the day what we want, thick grass and fewer weeds to grow in it. So that's something that you can do, good exercise as well. And then the other thing you can do, and we touched on it a couple of weeks ago, if your lawn has been very wet because of the rain, I know we've had some drier weather now and things are growing, which sucks the moisture out the ground, but it's worth now and again just using a fork. And what pricking the lawn over with a fork does, it just allows air into the soil, it helps the drainage, and it really encourages the grass to grow much more healthily. And I tend to do it on areas that we walk or that are a little bit compacted, so you don't have to do the whole lawn. Don't think you've got to spend days and days doing it, but select the areas and do it, and it does make a big difference. So that's worth doing as well. And then of course the other thing, if we're mowing regularly to keep the lawn in good condition, we've got to think about the edges, because if you've got a nicely mown lawn and untrimmed edges, it really spoils the appearance. So two tools that are essential for this. We've got a half moon edging iron, and this is basically just a blade, and what we do with that is we can cut a nice edge. So these edges aren't too bad, to be fair. Mrs Fish is normally in charge of the edging in our garden, but she's allowed me to do a little bit today. But if the edges were all crumbly, then what you could do is you could just using this trim off a little bit just to create a nice neat edge, which gives you a starting point. You don't have to do that every year. We probably do it every couple of years just to keep them nice and trim. But once you've done that and got that straight vertical edge, this is where our edging shears come into play. And basically what we do is we then just trim round with the edging shears just to make it nice and neat and tidy. It makes the garden look so much neater. So I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 hours. Well, we're in the vegetable garden now, and it's going to be a busy couple of months because it's the time when we start doing all the sowing and all the planting. Some seeds are going to be sown directly into the soil, like the carrots and parsnips we're going to put in now. Other things, more tender vegetables, we start off in pots and trays and plant out later. So I've already started to prepare the ground. Now, where you're growing things like carrots and parsnips, never ever manure the ground, because if you do, you get forked roots. So we want this to be on ground that's had no manure for a year. It could have had it for last year's this crop, and I've forked it over and started to prepare it. And what we need to do is to prepare a seed bed, and it's really simple. The best way to do that is to use a rake or a small fork. It's to break any lumps up, but we're trying to create a nice crumbly tilth so that we can make a drill, a shallow trench to sow the seed in. So I'm just going to finish this off before we sow the seeds. So when you've got a nice crumbly tilth, that will make sowing the seed so much easier. So I'm going to put this just on top of there because I'm going to need that in just a few minutes time. So then we've got to take out the drill. That's a small shallow trench. So I use a straight edge for this. Some people put a string line down, but I find this to be much easier. So I'm just going to put that in the position that I wanted. We sow in 3 rows here, they're about a foot apart, and then all I'm going to do is use a trowel just to take out a shallow drill. So it's really simple. We're just taking it out about 1/2 inch deep all the way along the board from one end to the other. There, so once you've got that out, that gives you a lovely drill to sow into. So we can then start sowing the seeds. Now, lots of different varieties of parsnips and carrots that you can sow, and they are best sown this way because the roots can go straight down. Sometimes you can buy little packs of seedlings, and I don't like those because if you break that taproot when you prick them out, then you get a forked carrot. So it is best to sow them this way. At the moment our soil is nice and moist underneath. It's drying off on the top, which is ideal. But if your soil is dry, just a little tip that you can do is before you sow and after you've taken out the drill is just to water along the base like that, and that just means that when you sow the seeds on it, you're going to have some moisture there which will help them germinate. So we're going to put in this area, we're going to have a row of parsnips and 2 rows of carrots. I'm using one called Countess. It's a really good one. It's got resistance to canker, which is a fungal disease they get, so it's a good one. And the way that I sow them is very simple. These need to be about 3 inches apart to give them room to grow. So it is literally a case of sowing 2 or 3 seeds, and there they are, every couple of inches. So we're going to put in a little group of seeds like that every 3 inches, and the idea being hopefully they will all germinate, and when they're about 1 inch tall we'll thin them out and leave the strongest seedling to grow on. So that's how we sow the parsnips. And then the carrots, very, very similar. Lots of different varieties of carrots. You get long ones, short ones, round ones. One of the big problems, of course, with carrots is carrot root fly. That's a little maggot that gets in and eats the root. There are varieties like this one here, which is called resistor fly, which has got a good resistance to them. So if it's a problem, try one like that. What I do is I grow them under meshing. So when I finish, this will be lifted over these 3 beds here. So I'm growing one called Primo. This is an F1 hybrid carrot, really good one, fairly fast growing, very sweet roots. So all I'm going to do with these is sow these directly out of the packet, and I'm just going to sow them very, very thinly, really thinly, because we want to minimize the amount of thinning that we do. Because when you thin those carrot seedlings, it's the smell of the carrots that attracts the carrot flies to come in and lay their eggs. So we want to cause minimum disturbance, so nice and thin all the way along this row. And then what you do afterwards, 2 ways you can do it. One is you can use your rake as he knocks himself out and just pull the soil in like that over them, or the other way you can do it is just use your hand and just brush the soil over the top, give it a bit of a tap down, stick a label in the end, and that's your carrots sown. And hopefully within a couple of weeks we'll have little carrots popping up through there with a promise of lovely roots to eat later on in the season. Well, thank you for watching, and hopefully that's got you in the mood to get out in the garden. And please tell all your friends about it. Remember, it's on YouTube and Facebook, and it's free to subscribe. We're going to be back later on in the week when I'm going to be planting onion sets and dividing perennials to get some plants for free. We'll see you then. Bye.